I spent the first couple of weeks in September traveling around England, and the first week of that specifically in London. Previous to that, I had spent about a week in Ireland traveling for work, so if you haven't checked out that video, there's a link in the description, or you can click right here and go check out that video as well. If you have enjoyed my content, please leave a like on this video to tell me that you're enjoying my content, as well as subscribe to my channel because it does really help my channel out with getting into the YouTube algorithm and finding new subscribers. Hello everybody, welcome back to Bandits and Bookworms. My name is Deidre and today let's travel to London. For some context, London has been on my bucket list to go to since I was like 14 or 15. I have had the same piece of canvas art hanging in whatever room I inhabit at the time, just to remind me of how much I wanted to go there. When my dad got diagnosed with prostate cancer last year, it really kind of woke up my whole family that life is finite and we needed to go do the things. Don't worry, my dad's fine now. He's been cancer-free since early this year, but that feeling of life is finite really stuck with us. So in January, we booked our trip to England, waited the requisite number of months to build the suspense, and then come September, headed off toward England. At least that's what my family did. Like I said, I'd been in Ireland for a week already, so all I needed to do to get to England was a little puddle jump on over, and so puddle jump I did. Through some very fluffy clouds and landing at Heathrow Airport at around midday on Wednesday. Traveling to England was smooth, unlike my cursed Cork trip. I even managed to make it there with my bag this time. I rendezvoused with my family and we took our first tube ride, and a little tear genuinely sprang to my eye because I was here. I had finally made it to this place that I had been dreaming about for so long. I want to pause here and just say how much I love the London Underground. I grew up in a very small town in the very car-centric United States, so being able to navigate all around London just using public transit was très magnifique. We dropped our things off at the hotel and then went out to explore a bit to get the fam used to their jet lag. My partner is a really big fan of Doctor Who, so on our way out we spied this TARDIS, which was right next to our underground station. We would later come to find out that this is kind of the only Doctor Who tourist attraction in London. There's one shop and museum that's like kind of way out of the way and only open for like half an hour on Thursdays, but then that's about it. So we were really baffled by this, but we found like the one thing right away. We took a tube over to Hyde Park where I spied my very first telephone booth, and I went full tourist mode about it. Hyde Park was created in 1536 by Henry VIII as an enclosed deer hunting ground and was not opened to the public until 1637 by Charles I. Today, it is home to Kensington Palace, as well as a number of running and cycling paths, and plays host to many special events throughout the year. While we were there, we obviously stopped by Kensington Palace, but mostly just spent our time wandering around the pond and saw many a bird enjoying the water. For a late lunch / early dinner, we went to the Goat Tavern, at which I got my first official English fish and chips, as well as a cider. We were all so excited to be there that we decided to toast the successful journey and finally getting to travel together. Thursday was a big day, so buckle in. We woke up early and headed to Hyde Park again for a morning walk. The park has a bunch of artwork and statues, one of which is pictured here. After the park, we had breakfast back at our hotel, and then our first stop was Big Ben. I was fully not ready for what we were going to see when we left our tube station. When we'd mapped it out, it looked like we were kind of going to leave the tube station from the side and then turn to the right, and it would be there. But when we got there, we actually came out a different exit of the underground station, and when we got to the street, it was just bam, right there. It was majestic and everything that I dreamed it would be, and I absolutely cried while we were here. The tower had just gone through a restoration and it showed. It was so shiny and new looking. Our next stop was the London Eye, but as we were walking over there, I kept stopping to take more and more footage of the Houses of Parliament and Big Ben because it just dominated my attention so dramatically. After a small wait for the eye to open, we climbed aboard. I feel like this is one of those things that does truly live up to the hype if you're a fan of London, and a great introduction to the city overall. The narration on board does a great job of explaining all the prominent buildings, and it's a great overview of the whole sprawling nature of London. course, while we were up there, I couldn't help but focus on the Houses of Parliament some more because I was still just in disbelief that I was finally seeing it. My partner put his headphones on me for a bit and started playing the Sherlock theme, and wouldn't you believe it, staring out at my favorite city while listening to that music, I cried again. Remember how I said in one of my previous videos that I'm a big crybaby and I'm like a child? Yeah, it's me. I cry like a little baby child. We ate lunch at St. Charles Tavern where we all got smooshed into this tiny little table. It was on the second story, which gave us this really neat view down below onto the first floor. And we got to see them use a dumbwaiter to bring our food up. I, of course, got the fish and chips again, but it was massive, so I split it with my mom. Then we toured Buckingham Palace, which was insanely opulent. The changing of the guard was happening right as we were there, and I managed to secure a spot for a pretty good shot of it happening. But then I swear the universe needed a giggle because it's like the Benny Hill of shots that happened to me in there. It took a moment before I finally gave up, but yeah, anything that could get in the way of this shot absolutely did. No other footage was allowed inside of Buckingham Palace, but I do promise there was lots of art and it was very cool looking. And I did get this guidebook, which has a whole bunch of information about the palace and some pictures and things like that in there. So I have a souvenir, but I just don't have anything much to show you guys. Then we headed to King's Cross Station and platform 9 3/4, which I only got this one shot of because of multiple reasons, but especially being that it was just super busy inside and also outside, so I didn't spend much time here, but it was neat to have seen it. Across from King's Cross is St. Pancras Station, which is just an incredible piece of architecture. I feel like my videos here just don't really do it justice. It was really grand and honestly puts King's Cross to shame. After that, my partner and Kira went back to the hotel to rest, while my parents and I went to Earl's Court Tavern for dinner. I got a steak and ale pie, and it was fantastic. I am a real huge fan of meat pies, so England is a good place for me to be. And I was taking full advantage of the very traditional English food so far on this trip. Friday started off with hotel breakfast again, and then we headed to the Westfield London shopping center to get Matt some new shoes because he was definitely feeling it after all the walking we had done the day before. On our way to Westfield, we had tried to take a double-decker bus at the request of my father, but failed as the bus that we took was a regular single-level bus, so it was still on our list to try to get to a double-decker bus. From there, we went to Piccadilly Circus, which was partially under construction, so it wasn't quite as grand as I was expecting it to be, but it did still feel pretty neat to see such an iconic place in person. We were heading to the National Gallery next, but on our way there, we spied this M&M store that was huge, and therefore felt like we had to stop. This thing was enormous, and it had all kinds of M&M's merchandise, and it was like 4 stories tall with mascots and all kinds of things. I have never seen so many M&M's things in one spot. My mom got her picture taken with the green M&M, which I thought was very cute. My mom was apparently a green M&M fan, so today I learned. After that, we went to get food in Chinatown, which is right around the corner from the M&M store. We ate at this restaurant called Gerard's Corner, and I got this excellent shot of my dad yawning, so this one's for you, Dad. You're welcome. I forgot to get footage of my actual food, but I got curry chicken and it was really good. On our way back out, I spied the most terrifying Pikachu you ever did see. Then we finally made our way over to the National Gallery. There is so much art in here. It's like a maze with some of the most famous artists you ever heard of. We saw pieces by Van Gogh, Rembrandt, Monet, Da Vinci, including this really neat one by Da Vinci, which was a sketch, but couldn't be kept in regular lighting, so it was in a very dark room with a very dim light on it. Again, my camera did a great job of brightening this up, but it was really dark in this room. After the gallery, we made a quick stop at Waterstones since it was the first one I had seen in England. And then we made our way over to Cafe Concerto, which was a dessert and coffee place like nothing we'd experienced. Their menu was huge. This is just one page of it, and we all got these extraordinarily decadent drinks and desserts. I had the rose latte and their pistachio honey cake, and it was all delicious. After this, we went to Word on the Water, which is a book barge located near King's Cross. This will be featured more prominently in my Come Book Shopping With Me video, but here's a preview. Okay, that's enough. Subscribe. As we were wandering around, we found a little farmer's market thing nearby, which was really cool. There were lots of crafters and food there. It reminded me vaguely of the Marina Market in Cork. On Saturday, we did yet another large set of things, which started at the Tower of London. The Tower of London was first founded in 1066 and has historically been used as a number of things, including an armory, treasury, menagerie of wild animals, a public record office, a palace, and it is also now home to the crown jewels of England. Of course, with the tower having been founded nearly 1,000 years ago, there's way too much history for me to cover here, so I'll just go over the stuff we saw. We started out by getting up on the wall and getting our first view of Tower Bridge, then explored the palace area of the tower. It's undergone a number of expansions, but the general layout has stayed the same since Edward I completed a rebuild in 1285. So much of the palace is laid out the way it would have been for him. We saw a recreation of what his quarters would have looked like, as well as his private prayer chamber. We also saw the throne room, which was actually used by Henry III and then Edward I, who was his son. The Tower of London is also home to at least 6 ravens, as it's believed that if the ravens ever leave the tower, the kingdom will fall. These birds were so cool and were clearly very used to people. We were able to get super close to them and hang out while they were on the wall as we were walking by, and got to set eyes on the gherkin, which was also a weird lifelong dream of mine. I got to snap this neat picture of me with one, and I also got this awesome video of him cawing at us. After partying with the raven for a while, I went through this super narrow staircase that kind of bobbed and weaved, and after that, we wound up outside again and saw this horse and buggy race thing. I still don't know what this was about. I have tried to look it up. I cannot find any event in London that was happening that day that even sounds remotely like this, so I don't know what this was. Then it was time to go see the crown jewels, which I wasn't able to get any footage of because it wasn't allowed. Anything with the royal family involved, I basically am not allowed to take footage of it, but they were very sparkly, I promise. Here is an approximation of some of the sparkle. Then it was time to go to the White Tower. We explored one of the chapels on the grounds, the St. John the Evangelist Chapel. The White Tower was originally founded by William the Conqueror and is now a museum to a bunch of weapons, armor, this collar of torment, as well as other archaeological finds such as these ones from the Thames. We also found this dragon made of weapons, which was really unique. But, as whimsical as the dragon was, it was time to be reminded of the dark history of the tower as we descended into the cellar, which is currently formatted like an armory and has this memorial to Sir Robert Devereux, who was the 2nd Earl of Essex and executed for treason. Then, we went through the torture room on our way out of the tower. We also stopped to see the place where Anne Boleyn was executed. They now have this memorial there for everybody who was executed at the tower, which is quite a list. Next up was Tower Bridge, which was just magnificent. I was kind of hoping it would open up as we were walking across because it's supposed to be good luck, but no such luck befell us. As a fun fact, I have a Lego set of London in my office and have for a couple of years now, and Tower Bridge is featured prominently on it. It sits on the top of my bookshelf in my office here. Just across from the Tower of London was this cute little alleyway where we ate lunch at Pizza Express. I got this prawn pasta, and then we got to see some of the sights on the waterfront. Afterwards, we headed to the Sherlock Holmes Museum, where we were actually successful in taking a double-decker bus. The museum actually sits at 221B Baker Street, with a gift shop where the cafe sits in Sherlock. I managed to take this one video inside the museum before our guide came in to talk to us and let us know that we were not allowed to take videos, but instead could take pictures, so the rest of what I have are stills I took from the museum. It's basically entirely made up like it would look if Sherlock and Watson were inhabiting it in the 1800s, until you get to the top floor where they have a display of a bunch of Sherlock memorabilia and movie and show stuff, including old editions of the Sherlock Holmes books. Next up was Shakespeare's Globe Theatre. For those who might not know, I grew up in theater. My family was heavily involved in our local community theater, and I lived and breathed it until I graduated high school. So this definitely warmed my little theater nerd heart to see. The original Globe was demolished in 1644, so the one that we saw was a recreation that opened up in 1997, but this is the closest I'll ever get to it. We didn't go in this time, but when I get back to London, you can bet that this is going to be near the top of my list to go do. Right near the Globe is the Millennium Bridge, which has appeared in a number of pieces of pop culture, including Harry Potter, Guardians of the Galaxy, and a Taylor Swift music video. Before we crossed it, we stopped and got some art from a street vendor, and it's currently hanging on my wall behind my computer. My dad and Kira are really big fans of an anime called K-On!, so we took another tube trip over to the Aldgate East stop and recreated one of the photos from the show, which made my dad very happy. Kira was also validated because they had painted that scene at one point in time, and apparently it was a nightmare to paint, so they felt good about it. We did one more stop at a different Cafe Concerto where I got a pink hot chocolate, a lemon raspberry cheesecake, and then it was time for a very well-deserved rest. Sunday, we started back at what I am calling the tourist district, where Big Ben, the Eye, and several other tourist attractions are. The sky was nicer this day, so I got another shot of Big Ben, and then we headed into our first attraction, which was the Sea Life Aquarium. It started out with this glass walkway over one of the tanks, and then we got to see this guy, and I promise my camera is not blurry, that's just what the glass looked like for his tank. We saw several urchins, but I really liked that this one pointed out that it was edible, but then it was also listed as near threatened on the conservation status meter here, so that seems like it could be related. I didn't get a lot of footage of the labels of what the different flora and fauna were, but we can just take a moment to enjoy some of the beauty of these sea creatures. I also loved this manta ray because of his little kicky legs and the fact that he seemed like he was trying to say hi, but then got shy and decided to hide from us. I took this shot of this area to show off a little bit of the showmanship of the aquarium. I grew up next to the Seattle Aquarium, which is still the best aquarium I've ever been to, but this one was pretty good as well. We also got to hang out with these penguins for a little while, and the whole time we were there, Benedict Cumberbatch just saying penguins dumb was rattling around in the back of my head.
Penguins. Crested penguins. Penguin. Penguins.
Then, of course, because we are part of a pirate clan named Clan Jellyfish, I had to make sure that we got some footage of the jellies that we saw here. Also, my mom saw me filming this tank and had to say hello, so hi, Mom. After the aquarium, we headed over to Westminster Abbey, which was truly a behemoth of a structure, and the clouds here make it look even more intimidating. The bells were ringing when we were there to commemorate the second anniversary of King Charles II ascending to the throne. We didn't go inside the Abbey, but while we waited for our next activity, we sat for a little bit outside of what turned out to be Middlesex Guildhall, which currently houses the Supreme Court. The detailings on the carvings were unbelievable. It was impressive. Also, I was personally attacked about how short I am by the ground, because my partner was able to put his legs on the ground while we were sitting, and I was very not. Our next activity was the London Dungeon, which was another place we were not allowed to take much footage of because it's kind of a combined interactive show plus haunted house. They take you through some of the darker parts of London's history with themed rooms about how people might die throughout the centuries. Some of the rooms included an executioner, the rotting streets during the plague, followed by a plague doctor. In the streets as well, they actually made it smell like what the streets would maybe smell like during the plague, and it was grotesque and amazing all at once because it was extremely immersive, but also, oh. Then there was a torture chamber, a witchcraft room, which featured a contortionist and strobe lights, so it was really successful at being unsettling. Jack the Ripper in Whitechapel. There was some fictional stuff in there too, like Mrs. Lovett and Sweeney Todd, and then just a general courtroom as well. In each room, they had a different actor or set of actors, and I kept getting picked for audience participation, which I thought was hilarious. I don't know if they like picked somebody at the beginning to pick on, but I didn't get picked on a couple of times, but in 3 of the like 6 or 7 rooms that we went through, I was the audience participation person, which I thought was funny. So in the torture room, I got put in a cage and then like slowly like rocked back on a chair just kind of constantly. In the plague streets, I got asked my name and where I was from, and when I answered the United States, the guy who was in that room with us just got surprised and responded, "You have walked far," which I thought was fun. And then in the judges' chambers, I was put on trial and I wound up having to dance in front of everybody because I was on trial for witchcraft and I was accused of dancing naked in the streets apparently. So, but it was great fun. It was really funny, like how often it kept happening. It became kind of a running joke with my family that like every room we went into it'd be something different. At the end of everything, there's a drop ride as if we were getting hanged, and then it dumped us out into this bar, which I was able to get footage of. It was a neat Victorian-style haunted bar with a bunch of spooky decorations, including our friend Frank the Skeleton here, and a spooky piano that played itself. We also got to see these talking heads on our way out the exit door. We ate dinner at the Three Crowns pub, where I had a steak and ale pie, which is not pictured because I was starving and also just generally forgetful. Then we went to the largest Waterstones in London, which I took some time exploring, but you just get this little preview so that we can see more of that in that upcoming book shopping video. Seriously, please subscribe. Monday was bus tour day, so it was the one day during the week that we did not actually spend in London. We did end up covering a good section of southern England during this day, so let's get into it. Our first stop was to travel from London to Windsor for a quick tour of Windsor Castle. You'll notice a trend through most of this day that basically everything we do will be described as quick or brief or fleeting. Windsor Castle was built in the 11th century and is the most consistently used palace by the reigning monarch and has been since Henry I in 1100. As a result, we were not allowed to take any pictures or videos of basically any of the interiors, but I managed to sneak a couple of usable shots so that you guys could see how incredible this building was. We also got to see more of the Kingsguard passing by us on the grounds, so that continues to be really cool. We also got to tour St. George's Chapel, which is where Queen Elizabeth II is laid to rest, as well as King Henry VIII and a number of other people. I absolutely did not try to take any videos in here. It is extremely well guarded, especially the Queen's grave. There was an iron gate before it with a bunch of signs that basically told you that you were about to see where she was laid to rest, and please be quiet because people will be paying their respects and stuff, which I'm absolutely, totally understanding of. She and her family have a pretty specific section all laid out to them. Here's a still image that I found online of it, but it's very well denoted, it's very well beloved and obviously looked after. In contrast, King Henry VIII's grave, while still impressive, can literally be walked on, as can a number of other graves within the chapel, so that's not necessarily a unique thing, but for how prolific of a king that he was, I find it interesting that that is the status that he ended up with. We literally walked over his bones. It was kind of a surreal experience. The town of Windsor also looked very neat, but we really didn't have time to explore it, so this is kind of as far as the footage goes there. This is our tour guide, Leon, and he was a treasure. He definitely had a lot of different facts and stories to share with us during each of our bus rides between destinations, and I really enjoyed the way that he told stories. Our next stop was Stonehenge, which my family has appropriately named That Time I Glanced at Stonehenge, because we had such limited time here. The way that it's formatted, all of the tour buses come into one area, then we get off, we get onto a shuttle bus that takes you up to the henge itself, which sounds fine on paper, except for the fact that they had about 10 to 20 tour buses all coming in at the same time and 2 shuttle buses operating. So even if you jammed a bunch of people onto those buses, which we did, there was still about a 30-minute wait for us to get up to the henge. And we only had about an hour total of time there. So we got up there, we glanced at it, I got this footage. My partner and my mom literally ran around the path that encircles Stonehenge, and then we hopped in line to get on the shuttle back. My parents decided to do a quick swing through of the gift shop so we could try to pick up our ornaments, since like I said, we collect them everywhere we go. They sent us ahead to hold the bus, which turned out it wasn't necessary because we were far from the last people back, even though we were the last people out there. But anyway, Stonehenge was neat. It's on my list to go back to it, should I ever get the opportunity. Next, we got to travel to Laycock, which we again only had about an hour in, and we ate a provided lunch here at the Red Lion Pub, which has been here since the 1300s. This whole village definitely gave medieval English village, which is one of my favorite vibes. Laycock is the film site of a couple of scenes in the Harry Potter movies, including a shot of the Potter house in the Sorcerer's Stone where Voldemort goes to kill them, which we did stop by to see. We also saw Laycock Abbey from a distance, which is where the smaller Hogwarts courtyard scenes are filmed. Next, we traveled to Bath, home of the Roman baths, which were unfortunately closed when we were there, but we did at least get to see the building. We also saw Bath Abbey, which has a storied history, but it's highlighted by the story of one of the bishops of Bath having a dream. In the dream, angels ascended to heaven by ladder, which can now be seen on either tower in the front, including one falling, which was also detailed in his dream as well. Of course, we did some book shopping here in this shop called Topping & Company, again to be featured in my later book shopping video as well. Something I neglected to get good footage of because I was too excited about it and didn't think about it was that some of the scenes in Bridgerton were filmed here in Bath as well. Specifically, the one that I can remember him calling out was the modiste, which can be seen very vaguely in this shot here. You just have to paint those windows and door black and it's the modiste. Then we took an extended bus ride back to London to wrap our very long day. If you're in England and you have the time, I would recommend not doing a bus trip for any of these tour activities. They deserve a lot more time than what we were allowed. The only place that I felt like we got an appropriate amount of time was Bath, and even then I could have spent way more time there. I'd honestly recommend hitting Windsor and maybe Stonehenge in a day, and then taking a different day to do like Bath and Laycock, because they are worth the trips, but we just had to zoom right through. Tuesday was our final day in London, and honestly one where we took it super easy and mostly just did some shopping. Matt and I went to one of the Warhammer stores there, which I didn't really take any footage of because it wasn't much different than the ones that we have here at home, though they did have a couple of different pieces of merchandise that we did pick up. My family split off and did their own thing for the morning and early afternoon, which left us some time to go and have lunch with one of our friends who lives in England, Jake. Jake is one of the proprietors of the Booze Lips Tavern, which is a show that happens over on Twitch. I'll link it down below, but we managed managed to snap this picture of the three of us after lunch. We didn't take any footage while we were there. We were just enjoying each other's company. But Jake, if you're watching this, it was so good to see you, and I really hope we get a chance to do it soon, whether it's in England or here in the United States. I would be happy to see you again and hang out. On our way out to dinner, we saw the hotel a couple doors down from us had caught fire, which was crazy. Everybody was okay. Everybody made it out okay, but a few guests had to be relocated. I think they closed down the hotel, so we had a few people staying in our hotel that were from that hotel originally, and just kind of nutty. I had a Caesar salad for dinner, my dad got a meat and potatoes dish, and then we headed over to my personal highlight of the day, and our final activity in London, the Evans and Peel Detective Agency. This is a speakeasy that was right around the corner from our hotel, and themed like a Prohibition-era American speakeasy, and it was phenomenal. All of the drinks were great, and the theming was immaculate. Their menus were even little detective notebooks, and the drinks were named after various criminals. I got a drink called I Need Investigating, which was a mystery box, and I still don't know what this was, but it was really good. After that, we went to bed and got ready to head out to Cambridge the next morning. London was, as stated many times, a dream come true for me. I was super sad to leave it, even though we still had a week of our vacation left, and I now have it on my list to live there someday if I can. I figure the best way to end this would be to list my top 5 things that we did, but I need to preface this by saying everything we did was really good, and I really didn't have anything that was disappointing other than not being able to spend enough time in some places. So at number 5, we had the Sherlock Holmes Museum. At number 4 was the Evans and Peel Detective Agency. At number 3 was the London Eye. At number 2 was London Dungeons. This may be because of how much I got picked on for audience participation, but it was just really surprisingly good for what it could have been. And number 1 was, of course, Big Ben and the Houses of Parliament. Was that really surprising to anyone? So we spent a couple of nights in Cambridge and then several days in York as well. That vlog will be coming out in the coming weeks, so please make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss it. And like I said at the beginning, it does really help my channel if you engage with this video in some way. Leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe. All of those things are helpful for me, so please do so if you are enjoying my content. And also, you'll get to see my next couple of videos on your feed. I'm just putting that out there. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you are practicing safe text. Bye.